Hi guys, it's me, moley-kun, and I am today going to be doing a book review of The Waking Fire by Anthony Ryan, which was given to me by an old colleague. This has been happening a lot recently, where like friends and colleagues and stuff have just been giving me books to read, which is fine. I like reading books, but I already have enough books on my to read list. I don't need more at the moment. Like I have like three piles of books over there of books that are waiting to be read. I have books over there which are waiting to be read. I've got books in the hallway that probably still haven't been read yet. But people still keep giving me books. And yeah. So Making Fire by Anthony Ryan, first of all, it's a substantial book. It's like 680 pages, so it is a commitment to read. And ultimately, I don't think the commitment was that worth it. Like, I'm not scared of big books in general. I will happily read books that read into like the high hundreds, even thousands of pages. I think the largest book I've ever read is like Kant's Critique of Judgment, which is like 1,200 pages in the original text. I would read an abridged version if I were you. Kant does waffle, but but this, I feel, considering it's 680 pages, and it didn't actually conclude. There's another book after this which I won't be reading. I feel it was a lot of filler and could have probably been done shorter. But saying that, I did find the story itself interesting. It had heavy anti-imperialist, heavy anti-capitalist themes. It had a lot of sort of political intrigue going on. So it was quite interesting in that respect, and I did like that. But uh, there are a few major flaws I had with the book. First of all, being the way that the characters seem to have no real agency. Like, they'd get into the situation, and then there'd be this deus ex machina that would just save the day. Like, one chapter, um, one of the main characters, one of the main sort of protagonists, is has a standoff against her old tutor after finding out that she is betraying the, I want to say empire, but I could be completely wrong because there's so many terms that are just thrown around and not really explained. I had to reread pages many, many times to try and understand what was going on. Um, Actually, no, it wasn't the empire, it was the other thing that was standing against them. Like, corporate political entity. It's like a company which had now become a country by itself. So she was trying to betray them to the empire, and this protagonist was having the final standoff with her, and the protagonist was about to be killed because the tutor is far too strong, and out of nowhere a dragon kills the tutor, and that's it. Move on. End of chapter. I was like, okay, that could have been done better, and really felt like the protagonist had no agency and no sort of room for character development or growth or anything like that, because you just completely robbed that. And there's another one where one of the other protagonists, who is a thief, who ends up becoming a part of his uncle's archaeological sort of survey team, and they go off into the mountains to try and find the legendary white dragon. But at one point, this guy he gets attacked by rogue headhunters, paralyzed by the other guy's use of black dragon blood, which in this setting gives everybody like psychic powers, like psychic sort of strong telekinetic powers. Um, so yeah, absolutely nothing he can do. He's about to die, and then out of nowhere, Barbel starts, and the guy gets distracted, and our protagonist is able to get free. So it's like the book is just full of these weird deus ex machinas that rob people of agency, and I found it really frustrating. I mean, yes, a few of them do get explained towards the end of the book as to why they happened, but I still found it so annoying, and because it happens so often, I found I didn't really have any particular interest in the characters because they're not going to develop or anything. It's going to be saved by a random dragon that appears out of nowhere. So yeah, that's, I think, the biggest flaw I had with this book. The other flaw I have, as I already mentioned, is so many names and terms are just thrown at you. Sometimes just dense pages full of these names and terms. It's and none of them are very well explained. It's sometimes hard to really understand what it is you're reading. I apologise if my voice sounds a bit croaky, by the way. I'm currently getting over a sort of heavy cold, so I apologise for that. But yeah, just so hard to read some of it. I reread pages, I think about 10 times in some situations, just to try and get what was going on. And even then, I still can't really understand the names of everything that's going on. Um, yeah. The third problem I have was the main sort of focus in the story. I say focus, but the main sort of themes to. There's no sort of magic, but there's dragons. And this corporation harvests dragon blood and distills it into sort of products, which I think could be like an analogy for drugs in a way. But these products are then consumed and give people superhuman powers. So there are the black dragons, which, as I mentioned, give people sort of strong telekinetic powers. There's green dragons. Their blood gives people super strength, super speed, super fast reflexes. There's red dragons, which give people the ability to breathe fire. And then there's blue dragons, which gives people sort of astral projection and telepathy. I know it's hinted that that's only a fraction of what we actually use it for. Well, I say we, humans in the story use it for. Because like late in the story, very late in the story, it's revealed that the blue blood can actually do more, but we just hadn't got to that stage of understanding it yet. But anyway, there's all these things that you can do with the blood, and people consume it quite freely. And it's always hinted that there's like downsides to drinking huge quantities of it or mixing different colours of blood. But that never happens. The characters do it all the time. They drink like doses of it, and then their power's waning. Gulp down another 2 doses, and then another 3 a couple of pages later. Or they'll mix red blood with blue blood, and then have some green and black blood a few pages later, and nothing bad seems to happen to them, despite all these warnings that you get that you shouldn't mix colours and you should be careful of your dosages. At worst, like one of the protagonists is like, oh, they feel a bit fatigued, and then that fatigue magically disappears like the next page. So there doesn't seem to be a downside, despite what the book says, to all of this. And even when they do drink the blood, the protagonists are not saved anyway, because they still get easily overpowered in the situations where Deus Ex Machinas get involved. So it kind of seems a little bit pointless in the long term. And I'm aware I'm criticising this book very heavily, but those are the 3 main flaws I had with it. What I did like were, as I said, the anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist themes. I liked the political intrigue that ran through it all. I found that quite interesting. I just feel if we took out those flaws, there would have been a really great story there, which probably could have been done without the dragons, but we'll see. And I do think that the themes that play out through the story, I think, could be done as an analogy to like drug usage and drug addiction, as I mentioned, because the dragon blood does seem to be quite addictive to people who use it. They get kind of used to having those superpowers and just want to grow and consume more to have those powers all the time. So there does seem to be like analogy to drug addiction in there. There's, I think, also potentially the analogy to global warming, because ultimately it's the main sort of overarching story seems to be we humans have encroached on the dragon's territory, pushed them back into like small hunting grounds rather than their native territories. And now the dragons are finally rebelling and pushing humans back off their native islands. So I think that's possibly the way the way it's done in the book, I think is possibly an analogy to global warming. At least, anyway, if not global warming, at least the dangers of excessive capitalism is quite clear in the story as well, anyway. So, that is my review of The Waking Fire by Anthony Ryan. for all its flaws, there were some enjoyable moments, and I would have to give it a 6 out of 10. I couldn't give it any more than that, and I think if I give it any less, despite its heavy flaws, it would be doing it an injustice. So I think 7 out of 10 is as fair as I can be with that. So yeah, that is Awakening Fire. As I said, I won't be reading the rest of the series because I just didn't enjoy it enough. I didn't feel connected to the characters enough to want to read more. So that is it. 6 out of 10, Waking Fire. And that's all I've got to say. So thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.